And away we go. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Wherever you happen to be in the world today, of course, this is Coffee Talk or Coffee Talk Live or at Coffee Talk Live. If you are looking for me on YouTube or Prepper University on YouTube, being simultaneously broadcast live on both channels as we get ready to discuss what is going on in the world today. Who knows? Too much of one thing and not enough of the other. Of course, also you can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, and that would be at Coffee Talk Chat. And last but not least, Fistful of Radio, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon, unless otherwise specified. So as we get ready to jump in, and for those of you who are listening and not able to see, come here. Hold on. Come here, dear. Granny Smith, everyone. Granny Smith down there trying to get my attention, so I may as well give her some for a minute. How you doing, darling? Little girl, her elbows, she still limps, but her elbow's doing better. Anyways, for those of you who are listening and not able to see, naturally, I will read through as many of the comments as is reasonable so that you can keep up with the conversation. And I'll go ahead and acknowledge some of the people that have chimed in thus far. I see Hugo is here today, Dragon, Keisha, Donna Beaver, who reminds everyone to please hit the thumbs up. Absolutely, much appreciated if you can do that. Boogers is here. Urban Angst, Helter, and Bingo have popped their heads in so far to say hello today. See how we're doing. How are we doing, Granny Smith? What do you think? Oh, you want me to shut up? Is that what it is? She's got her paw on my lip. Don't scratch. You want to get down now? You just wanted to say hello and now you want to leave? Okay, I'll put you down. Go on. And I see that all people and Monkey are also here so far today. Glad you could join us as we get ready to jump in. Now, here's something actually I don't have an article pulled up for, but I was reading this earlier. I should have copied the news article on this because I can't remember where it was. It's the stupidest thing I've seen. Maybe not, but it's up there. And it's making the argument, are you ready for this? That Santa's reindeer are all female. And their justification for that argument is that because the male's antlers fall off and the female's antlers do not. So the reindeer pulling Santa's sleigh, because we've got to make women in charge of everything, right? The reindeer pulling Santa's sleigh, therefore, are all females. And I'm like, okay, let's unpack this really quick. First of all, that's not true. Male and female reindeer do have antlers, and they all shed their antlers, not just the male ones. The male's antlers are larger, so they fall off sooner. So, like around January-ish, the male's antlers will be falling off or have already dropped off. And then the females, it's probably more like March or very early April, I think. Their antlers start to drop off again because they're smaller. So that's number one. Number two, Santa's a fictional character. Do we really need to do this? And three is, what is the canon for Santa? Because that's always an important thing. Is traditionally speaking, have the stories been written that the reindeer are males? I don't remember. But yeah, you know how we've just got to do that kind of stuff in society now. Everybody's got to be female. At least they didn't make all the reindeer gay. Because that's next. That's next. It's like that one storybook everybody was complaining about that was circulating in the bookstores and in public elementary schools with the two gay Santa Clauses. I don't know if you saw that one. One was black and one was white, and they were both Santas, and they were like husbands. Because, yeah, that's the direction that they're trying to push society in nowadays. You just can't win. You can't win. And David Jones says, hi from Canada. Glad you could make it today, David. We got a couple other people from Canada in here as well today. And All People says, wait, Rudolph is a gal? Yeah, well, according to this article, and I should have saved it. I should have stated. I should have saved it rather. Helter says it's a fictional story. Woke engineers reindeer don't have red noses or have the ability to fly. Yeah, I know. There's no such thing as an actual flying reindeer unless you dropped them out of an airplane. Um, but then the argument that they made for why they should be females instead of males isn't even the truth. It's inaccurate. Like I said, the males and females do both have antlers, but the females' antlers also drop off. It just takes longer because they're not as heavy as the male's antlers. So you're not even telling the truth. You made something up, and the problem with that is people will believe it. They read it and believe it without bothering to research it. Urban says an interesting myth from Finland: when a shaman would ritualistically drink the urine of reindeer that have fed on the Amanita muscaria mushroom, which is red with white tufts on top. So what happens when you get high from that or something? Is that the idea? Anyways, on to the election. On to the election. We're talking about dear old, sweet old, lovable old, honest old Uncle Joe. Oh, Urban finishes his point here. He says the shaman would then fly around in the spirit realm and bring back gifts of knowledge to the village. I see. And Keisha says, I can't understand why people want to make a simple things for kids and turn it into a sexual thing. Good question. And David says, red-nosed candy makes you fly. I guess. Dragon said, Santa's reindeer are a unique species. They're capable of flight, so people shouldn't assume they follow any rule that normal reindeer do. I see. But yeah, because the election doesn't seem to be going well, and this is an article from Fox News. It says, deep, deep trouble. Democrats reportedly bringing in Hillary Clinton to help with Biden's reelection. There they are. Peas in a pod. That's definitely an airbrushed photo because the two of them look really bad in real life. Yeah. So the article goes on to say Democrats are reportedly bringing in Hillary Clinton as a reinforcement to help President Biden win his 2024 reelection campaign. NBC News reported the former Secretary of State held a fundraiser for Biden last month at her Georgetown home that raised close to $1 million. Her popularity with women and key parts of the Democratic base are considered assets for Biden as he attempts to expand his outreach to voters. Is she really popular with women, or is that just something the media tells us? Clinton's role in Biden's re-election effort is expected to grow as the 2024 presidential election nears, according to NBC. Fox News, Charlie Hurt said, every time it seems as if Hillary Clinton has gone away, she comes back. I think Joe Biden's going to need more than an I'm with her t-shirt with all of his political problems, he said on the Big Weekend show. I'm not familiar with that show. The thing is, we think that our poorly performing president-elect isn't going to make it. So we bring in two-time loser Hillary Clinton to garner support. Are you trying to make him lose? I mean, he already doesn't have a leg to stand on. But although, quite frankly, he didn't have much of a leg to stand on the first time around, but he still managed to get 81 million votes somehow, some way. All People says, when you mentioned the dropping of reindeer from the sky, it reminded me of the sitcom WKRP that had the episode about the flying turkeys. Yeah, when Les Nessman thought turkeys could fly, so they dropped him out of the helicopter. I remember that episode. Broken Gardening says, "Oh my, yes indeed." And All People says the Killary corpse count. And Sven said she is popular with evil and stupid women. That could be. And Dragon said, fantastic idea. Get one of the most unpopular and disliked women in politics to help the most unpopular and disliked career politicians. Absolutely. That's what you do. This just seemed to me like a really foolish move. I only the media loves this woman. Anyone else who talks about her can't stand her. She's popular because we're told that she is. You're constantly reminded how popular Hillary Clinton is and how important she is and how groundbreaking she is and everything else you can think of. But I don't believe the average person really feels that way. I think that's one of those media talking points that you can't escape because they're going to keep pounding it into us, whether we believe it or not. Same thing with Biden. I don't think he's popular. I really don't. And more to the point here, and I'm going to pull up another article that I thought was really interesting. I'm going to tie this together. I'm going to tie it together. And David says, stay safe on the 2024 crazy train. Yeah, and we're not talking about Ozzy Osbourne either. And then Helter says, birds of a feather stick together, both criminals and failed candidates. Well, he got as far as president, and she got as far as Secretary of State, correct? So they're not that stupid. Got somewhere. But maybe this will help you understand where some of those votes came from. And this is a Washington Examiner article. Dirty voter rolls are slammed. 131% of eligible DC voters are registered. This is the problem. And it's not just in the District of Columbia. There are several states that have better than 100% registration, which is not technically possible. How can 131% of registered voters in the District of Columbia be registered to vote? 100% is a fantasy. How can you get 100%? Where does 131 come from? Article reads, several states and the District of Columbia have been hit by an election watchdog for failing to clean up their voter rolls of people who are dead and ineligible. Judicial Watch said it just finished investigating registrations and sent letters to the District of Columbia and Illinois, warning that they are violating the National Voter Registration Act by not cleaning up the rolls. In the case of Washington, D.C., Judicial Watch said the voting rolls revealed as much higher numbers than are eligible to vote. D.C.'s total registration rate, its total number of registrations divided by the most recent census estimates of its citizens' voting age population, is greater than 131%, said the review. But Judicial Watch also gave credit to the district for moving quickly after receiving its letter to begin removing 103,000 names of ineligible voters. California and Illinois have promised to clean up their rolls. Now, 100% would imply that every single adult 18 age and older is a registered voter, which in of itself is not really plausible that you can get actually 100% registration. I might believe 80 because there's a lot of states that will automatically register you when you go and get a driver's license or a state ID or something. They don't even tell you, they just do it. They register you anyways. So maybe 80%. And removing 103,000 people from your roster is not going to get you back to a realistic number if you're at 131% registration. I'm just saying you'd have to remove, I think, at least more than 1 million names if you're that high. So did they remove some names to kind of get the watchdog group to back off? Why do you have so many people registered? How come you're not cleaning up your registration? and keeping it current. California, Illinois, District of Columbia, New York, New Jersey, so on and so forth. And Armored says you get 131% with Common Core math. That must be. Helter says we're seeing absentee ballots sent to everyone on the rolls, whether they're alive or not. These ballots are a potential gold mine of election fraud. Absolutely. And this is the potential for election fraud. You want to know where 81 million votes came from? Just throwing it out there because I sure don't know. It says the Washington-based legal watchdog said if Judicial Watch is not satisfied with the jurisdiction's response to its notice letters, Judicial Watch plans to sue under the National Voter Registration Act to ensure the jurisdictions take certain reasonable steps to clean up their voter rolls as the law requires, which is why they dropped 103,000 names, because that's a certain reasonable step. And it's enough to keep them out of court, but it doesn't really clean the roster up if their percentage is that high for the entire District of Columbia, that is. I sure don't trust them. How about you? I really don't trust that. The investigation is the group's latest effort to make sure that there is a greater election integrity in the 2024 elections. Unbelievable. Dirty voter rolls increase the potential for voter fraud, said Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton in a statement, as Washington, D.C.'s quick cleanup of tens of thousands of names in response to Judicial Watch shows there are potentially hundreds of thousands of names on the voter rolls that should be removed by California and Illinois. Indeed, Judicial Watch litigation resulted in the removal of 4 million names from the voter rolls in various states recently. And they call out DC, Illinois, and California because those are the ones that have the most. But it's in several states, mostly blue states, just saying. Oh, that's how you do it, folks. And Urban says, time to go Legacy Tech ID, paper, pencil, little slot. Yeah. Oh, they'll find a way to cheat that too, I'm sure. They'll find a way to cheat that too. As we shift around here, this is another one that's really important. And it's something that my wife and I were talking about just recently, and then it happened again. And I'm gonna read this. It doesn't look like much on the surface, but there's something else going on. CBS Los Angeles. This is one that you're probably not going to find talked about too much in the media. Encino gas station sells 2 winning Mega Millions tickets for $359 million jackpot. Okay. A Chevron station in Encino was an incredibly lucky spot in the latest drawing of the multi-state Mega Millions lottery, selling not 1 but 2 tickets that matched all 6 numbers for a total jackpot of nearly $400 million. Lottery officials said Saturday. If the tickets were purchased by separate parties, the players will split the $395 million prize and have the option of receiving $197.5 million in 30 graduated. Hold on, it jumped. Excuse me. Make sure I get my place back here. Graduated annual installments or a lump sum cash payment of $94.3 million before federal taxes. Before the federal taxes, the California lottery announced. Wow, what a jip. So I won $395 million. Oh, they'll split it. Is that still the split? You win $395 million. You can take $197.5 million in installments, or 94.3, and that's before the taxes. Wow, they really rob you. They really rip you off with that. The station is located on Ventura Boulevard. It wasn't immediately clear if this was the first time such a coincidence has occurred. This is definitely an interesting one. Not sure if it's ever happened before, but I'll ask around on Monday. Carolyn Becker, the Deputy Director of the California Lottery Office of Public Affairs and Communications, told City News Service on Saturday. Now, What's really the big deal here? Besides the fact that they're getting robbed, the fact that they're getting robbed in taxes, state, county, federal, city, whatever they got to pay. That's insane that they take that much back, especially since so much of that lottery money supposedly goes to public schools, to roads, to all sorts of things like that. So they're already getting a big chunk of it. And Dragon says it's near impossible. I'd like to know if they're both quick picks or the lottery was rigged. And that's where I'm going with this. Again, this is something my wife and I have talked about before. I don't know if anyone else has been paying attention to this. We don't play the lottery, but we do watch. The Mega Millions jackpot, for the last 2 years, almost every major jackpot has been won in California. It is a multi-state lottery, but almost every one has been won in California, including both of the recent billion-dollar jackpots. Remember, there were 2 that went over $1 billion, both won in California. I think it's a very interesting coincidence that even though this is a multi-state lottery, all the big ones are won in the state of California. That needs to be investigated. Something really funny about that to me. And Urban says the odds are astronomical, very suspect. And Armand says theft is illegal unless the government does it. Yeah, no kidding. And Helter says the lottery is like the McDonald's scandal back in the day. And of course, what he's referring to there, what Helter is referring to there, is you all remember the McDonald's Monopoly prizes thing that they did for like 20 years and then they suddenly just stopped and didn't get back to it. That was because all the major prizes were scammed by the chief security programmer who would arrange for someone to win and they would split it in different states. He would find out where it was going, intercept the prize, and make an arrangement with someone so that he could keep the scam going. And he got away with it for something crazy like 19 years before McDonald's figured it out and they just shut the whole program down. Nature Nerd says there was a tech guy years ago that controlled the lottery algorithms. Yeah, and it could be that they messed up and dropped the number there twice. If there was a scam, I can't say it's a scam for sure because I don't know, but I would speculate that there's something really crooked going on, that all the big jackpots end up in California and it's multi-state running all the way down to the south. I don't know how many states are in it, the Mega Millions, off the top of my head. Let me see how many states. Mega Millions is in 45 states. Wow, that's even more suspicious. So 45 states, including the District of Columbia and the U.S. Virgin Islands. So 47, because District of Columbia and U.S. Virgin Islands are not technically counted as states. So 47 provinces. That's more than I thought. That's really suspicious then. Donna says, my sister and I noticed that a while back. And Nature Nerd says California has the most people, so they're more likely to win. Versus 46 other locations? I don't know about that, Nature Nerd. Sven says Mega Million sales will plummet after this. If it's investigated, it will. Urban says I won 10 Canadian dollars the other day on provincial lottery BC 49. Not a bad return for a $1 investment. There you go. And Raccoon says rich people buy like 1,000 tickets. It's almost a guarantee to win of some kind. I don't know. And Booger says the lottery is the same in Illinois. All state winners here recently are from Chicago. None from anywhere south of Chicago. Interesting. And Urban says, imagine if I had won twice. Yeah, I know. You could retire. You could retire. But yeah, that is 45 states, Mega Millions. And plus the two other, Virgin Islands and District of Columbia. I understand that there is a large population in California, but that still seems astronomically unrealistic. There aren't so many people in California that it counterbalances almost the rest of the United States, like 85% of the rest of the United States versus California. That just does not seem realistic at all. And I've heard rumors, looking at some of the other articles, that they're considering doing an investigation in California to find out, especially after the double hit at the same gas station, what exactly is going on there, and is something funny going on. Speaking of something funny going on, here's something you may not have realized. I'll drop you this one, and this comes from Fox News. Monkey, one more point for Monkey. He says, I find the lottery sketchy since the IRS would eat you alive when it comes to tax season. Yeah, again, the lottery, most of that money is already supposed to be going to infrastructure and public schools and parks and recreations and things like that. They're already taking a huge chunk, and then they're going to gouge you again when you win. State and federal. It's insane. And Arbit says when they count the electoral college votes, they'll count California 81 million times. Exactly. Now, this is interesting. Fox News, House Republicans demand new study on possible link between uncontrolled immigration and crime. Really? House Republican lawmakers are calling for a new report on the number of illegal immigrants who commit crimes and who are incarcerated in prisons across the U.S., as the previous assessment came years before the current historic migrant crisis at the border. Last month, authorities announced the arrest of a Honduran illegal immigrant charged with rape, kidnapping, and assault. And last week, authorities said an illegal immigrant was arrested for fatally shooting two sisters in their home in Dallas. There have been a slew of other charges against illegal immigrants, including a Venezuelan migrant accused of raping a woman in front of a 3-year-old child in New York. Meanwhile, the head of Border Patrol has said the illegal immigrants with serious criminal histories are trying to cross the border daily. Now, the thing is, it strikes me as humorous in a sick kind of way that, all right, House Republicans demand, big deal. Lawmakers need a study to verify that when you let hundreds of thousands of unvetted illegal immigrants into the country, and you don't know where they are, where they came from, what they're doing, what their history is, that crime might go up. And their answer to this problem, rather than try to find a viable solution, is to waste tax money on a committee to study it. Did I miss something? I know I sound really sarcastic there, but hey. Monkey says people will go poor real quick due to not even being around that amount of money before. A lot of people don't know how to manage money, and they do ruin it. I'm sure some of you have seen or heard of the show How the Lottery Ruined My Life, and it showcases people that were just really frivolous. Sven says, I'm shocked. Money for nothing and sitting around bored with no respect for our laws. What could go wrong? No kidding. An Armored Ghost said every bleeding heart supports flooding the country, but not their neighborhood. And Urban said it's so creepy and cynical how they're building up the tension between the taxpaying population and an ocean of anyone and everyone coming to take everything. That feeling is what's being studied. Yeah. I mean, of course, crime's going to go up. And some of these people are coming from cultures where some of the stuff they're doing that are considered crimes here are acceptable where they're from. What do you think's going to happen? We talked about this a month ago with all the scooters in New York. Oh, wow, there's a huge uptick in scooter and electric bike theft in New York. Gee, I wonder why. Well, they're all parked in front of the migrant hotels with the license plates torn off. I wonder how that happened. Of course, the crime's going to go up. And you don't know who these people are. Nature Nerd says capital gains taxes, house state tax, the lottery if they don't have an income tax, and states like California have both. And Dragon says we don't know why there's been a spike in crime. No way the illegals we let in could have had anything to do with it. Gee, I wonder why this continues to be a Scooby-Doo mystery. Yeah, and they want to do what again? They want a committee. We need to research this. Oh, call for action. Let's look at it some more. That's what we'll do, and waste your tax dollars to do it. How much is that going to cost? Can I be on that committee? I'll wrap that up in a day. I, I'm just saying. And no actual viable solution. Again, what's the viable solution? Hate on me if you want to. Send them back where they came from. Repatriate these people. We don't know who they are. We don't know where they came from. Well, we know what countries they're coming from, but we don't know much else. They're not being controlled. They're not being vetted. They're not being researched. It's ridiculous. Spectre says more goofy things to play with on YouTube. And Broken Gardening is making fun of Scooby-Doo. Yeah. Where's Fred when you need him to pull the hood off of Washington elites and expose the problem? You need to stop them coming in, and you need to send a lot of them back where they came from. And Reuters says that's what Australia is going to do, which is a huge surprise because Australia is one of the worst ones. Their government, Australian government, is pretty much a totalitarian state at this point. And it says Australia plans to have migrant intake tighten student visa rules. Sydney, Australia, on Monday said it would tighten visa rules for international students and low-skilled workers that could have its migrant intake over the next 2 years as the government looks to overhaul what it said was a broken migration system. It wasn't broken. You just ignored your own laws. The decision comes after net immigration was expected to have peaked at a record of 510,000 in the 2022-2023 season. Official data showed it was forecast to fall to about 250,000 in 24 to 25 and 25 to 26, roughly in line with pre-C virus levels. We've worked around the clock to strike the best balance in Australia's migration system, Home Affairs Minister Claire O'Neill said in a statement ahead of the formal release of the government's new migration strategy later on Monday. The government-targeted reforms are already putting downward pressure on net overseas migration and will further contribute to the expected decline. O'Neill said the increase in net overseas migration in the 22 to 23 season was mostly driven by international students. I don't believe that. Australia boosted its annual migration numbers last year to help key businesses recruit staff to fill shortages after the C virus pandemic brought tighter border controls and kept foreign students and workers out of the country for nearly 2 years. Then how come you had more people coming in? That doesn't make sense. Tighter border controls, and they kept foreign students and workers out of the country for nearly 2 years, but you have nearly twice as many people come in those 2 years as normal, according to your own report that says that you had 510,000 in the 2022 to 23 season. Did I miss something? Did I read the wrong thing? D'Lo made it. Glad you could make it today. And Sven says Australia is run by a pile of stupids. And Spectre says as long as it's accepted, nothing will ever change but more control over the population. And Nature Nerd says housing crisis articles in every country with mass immigration. Yeah, because they get no room for them. And that's why they get them jammed in hotels and your tax dollars are paying for it. Australia is no different. We're seeing it again all over the Western world. All over the Western world. Australia, New Zealand, anywhere in Western Europe, United States, Canada, we're getting crushed. We're getting crushed by it, and our leadership is allowing it because it could have been curbed, and they made no effort. They made no effort. Urban says Australia is a goner. Australia is on the list of countries Israel considers dangerous for Israeli and Jewish travelers. I bet. I bet they do. And it gets worse. It gets worse. You mentioned the housing crisis. I've got an article for you. I've got something for you on the housing crisis. And this comes from New York. And this is a MoneyWise article. And Urban says usually Canada follows closely behind Australia. Yeah, they all take cues from one another. And because if one gets away with it, the other will try it. Australia, New Zealand, and Canada in particular. MoneyWise says tens of thousands of units have been lost. Rich New Yorkers are making the city's housing crisis worse by combining apartments. Here's what experts say need to change now. And this comes from Mayor Adams. He's the one making this complaint. I'm going to read the article and I'm going to tell you something about New York. And some of you probably already know this. It says the Big Apple is notorious for cramped and costly apartments, but some residents are getting that needed space in ways that could be worsening the city's housing crunch. About 50,000 multifamily row houses have been converted into one or two family homes since 1950, according to a 2023 analysis of building records in New York City published by Columbia University. According to the report, the total loss amounts to a whopping 100,000 units, no small figure considering the city has long grappled with a severe housing shortage. I'm not trying to begrudge folks who are trying to build larger apartments as their families grow. Historic preservationist Adam Brodenheim, who conducted the research, told the New York Times in October, I'm trying to bring attention to the way these actions across the entire city make a meaningful impact on our housing crisis. And this has been mirrored by Adams, Mayor Adams, you see him there, condemning homeowners and landlords in New York City for combining apartments to upgrade the condition of the apartments. It's your fault. There's a housing shortage in New York. Nothing to do with the tens of thousands of migrants that you've allowed into the city. It's nothing to do with that. It's because of since the 50s, landlords have combined apartments. Now, if you've ever been to New York or known anybody from New York, you realize that most New York apartments are no bigger than the room I'm sitting in now. They're all really miserably small, cramped studio apartments, 140 square feet apartments with like a hot plate and a sink and a little closet that has a toilet and like a 3x2 standing shower unit in it. I kid you not. Where you've got your head on the radiator and your foot on the front door when you lay down to go to sleep. They are extremely ridiculously tiny. And since the 1950s, certain landlords have made an effort to combine apartments to make them bigger, to make them more desirable to tenants, which just makes sense. You don't want to live in a little cubicle your whole life, do you? But according to Adams and according to a lot of these other analysts that are in the pocket of New York lawmakers, it's the landlord's fault that there's a housing crisis. Nothing to do, again, with the flooding in of illegal immigrants that you're trying to find room for, that you've got piled up in office buildings and tents and motels and hotels at the taxpayer's expense. Yeah, that makes brilliant sense, doesn't it? Sven says Adams does not understand his crisis. He just won't address the lack of renters in the rich areas. Not only that, but I think Adams does understand, but what he is pushing for and what all these lawmakers are pushing for, they don't actually want a solution. They want more federal tax dollars. Because that is his solution every time. I need to go to DC and try to convince the executive branch to give more money to New York for the crisis. He wants a bigger tax payoff, but he doesn't want to solve the problem, which is part of the problem. We don't want to fix this. We want more federal money. Well, where's the federal government going to get that money from? They're going to get it from you. And Urban says, sounds like communal apartments in Soviet USSR. Yeah, it's really bad, and they're expensive. Helter says the best way to fix the problem is to stop putting all the jobs in one city, and even worse, only in one area of the city. Then people wouldn't have to live in tiny apartments in overcrowded cities. Dragon says New York City is starting to resemble the New York City portrayed in Soylent Green in 1973. Yes, they're not eating each other yet, as far as I know. Although they didn't know that they were eating each other until the end of the film. Oh, if that was ever revealed. If that was ever revealed. But yeah, that's their solution. Stop having people modify their own property. Force them to quit modifying their own property. And somehow there'll be more space for who? For who? For illegal immigrants? They're all over the place in New York. You don't know where the hell you are anymore. WCM says, afternoon, brothers and sisters. Glad you could make it today. And Donna Beaver said, no solution. There is money in illegals. Yeah, and that's what I mean. Big tax money in that. Big tax money. And that's all these people really care about. That's all these people really care about. That's all he cares about. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that's the situation that we're in, and this is his solution. This is any of these lawmakers' solution. You'll see the same thing in Chicago. Mayor of Chicago. What does he want? More federal tax dollars. Oh, I need more money for this crisis. I need more money for this crisis. Not trying to reject the migrants from coming in. Not trying to clear them out of the airport. You got them living in the airport. Not trying to send them back where they came from. No, you want more tax money. That's always the solution. And again, it's always easy to spend money when it belongs to someone else, when it's not really their problem. It's your problem and my problem. And again, although obviously New York is in the United States, and I'm talking about the US in particular, this is an issue that you can make the argument for in any country, because whatever country you're in, if you have a massive influx of illegal immigrants, your tax dollars are paying for it. And then Raccoon had a question. It says, why don't the immigrants countries deal with these defectors? Why do they allow this to happen? I guess they don't want them either. Well, in order for them to deal with it, they have to be repatriated back, which many of these countries have said, if you send them back, we'll take them. We're just not doing it. We're just not really doing it. They can't deal with the defectors unless they get them back. And they're not going to come here and get them. And they're not going to pay for them to be returned. But if we send them back, they'll take them and deal with it accordingly. And that would be expensive on the part of the US, but that's far cheaper than what we're doing now. It's a lot cheaper to return them, put them on charter flights, load them into planes, and send them back than it is to feed them, house them, clothe them, give them medical, send them to school, all the stuff that we do. All the stuff that we do. That's what happens. It would be so much cheaper. And people can call me cruel for that. Oh, well, call me cruel then. Now, let me grab this video. This is something I wanted to show you guys. I'm going to put the sound on. No, don't do that. Let me expand that. That's too big. No. Hang on, guys. Having a little bit of an issue with this image. I want to show you a video clip. I'll try not to let the music be too loud. This is one of my pet peeves is food. I hate seeing food wasted. I also hate seeing people with poor diets. They don't eat well. They don't take care of their bodies, so on and so forth. This is a video that I thought was really interesting. This is a woman who has a 27-year-old McDonald's meal. And I want to share this with you. One more comment real quick. Donna says, let's take back the free phones and give them to the homeless and vets. Yeah, good luck with that. I'm gonna play this video clip for you. Let me pull it up. A 27-year-old McDonald's meal. And the reason that this, I'll talk about this a little bit here really quickly. I'm going to run the clip for you. And while it's running, I'm going to get up for a second because there is a cat trapped somewhere. I can hear her crying. She's probably got herself trapped in a closet or in the basement door. So I'll go let her out, poor thing, while you watch this, and then we'll talk about it.
So this is my hamburger that I bought in 1996. It's been in this shoebox in my closet for about 20 of those years. This is the sack that it originally came in. And the reason that I got it in the first place is because a friend had done this experiment, and her hamburger at that point was, I don't know, several years old, 3 or 4 years old. And I just thought that was really cool. So I thought I would try the same experiment. The paper itself that the hamburger was in, as well as the sack, absorbed all the grease, and it's even absorbed down into the bottom of the shoebox too. Mm-hmm. So here you can see the French fries. They just kind of look like dried out fries. The bread has never molded. As a matter of fact, it's not even cracked. The meat has never rotted.
And how many different hands would you say this has touched? Like how much bacteria?
Well, initially not that much because I just got it and put it in the back of my car and left it in the trunk for a good while. But eventually my hands, my kids' hands, other people have borrowed this and used it for like science fairs and that kind of thing. So it's made a few rounds.
So this isn't this burger's first run with fame.
Well, no. As a matter of fact, people through the years have, remembered about it, and they've asked me sometimes, like on Facebook, they'll say, "Do you still have that hamburger?" And I'll pull it out and show it one more time.
What's the experience of it being like in a closet for so long?
I forget about it. It just goes on the top shelf on the top shelf of my closet, and I don't think about it really until somebody asks, or like the other night at dinner, it came out. We were talking about preservatives, and I asked my granddaughter. I said, "Did I ever show you my hamburger?" And she's 17, so that's a long time to forget about it. But it's made the moves with us. We moved from one city to another, and at this point, I've had it so long. It just makes sense to keep it. Why not just keep it? Because it's not hurting anything, and it doesn't smell. It never did smell.
How much would someone need to pay you in order to make this a taste test?
Make a taste
test? Yeah.
Whoa. I think I'd want to put it through a lab first.
Can we see the hamburger one more time?
It's pretty dry and brittle.
So there's no mold on it?
No mold, and it never rotted at all.
That's crazy.
Here's its home. Happy hamburger.
Hopefully you all heard that okay. Did everybody hear that okay, clearly? Yeah, Monkey says, yeah, 3-decade-old McDonald's. Almost. Yeah, 27 years old. 1996 is when she purchased that meal. 1996. Raccoon says it's crazy. Monkey says it may not look good, but it probably has some bacteria that's not visible. And Dragon says, I'm surprised the hamburger hasn't evolved into a sentient being that intends to avenge for being left in a closet. And Urban says, maybe that's why people are living longer now to compare to the era before McDonald's. Here's the trick. Again, and I know buns typically last a little longer than, say, regular sliced bread because the outside of the bun has a coating of oil. All right, when they make the buns, so it helps to preserve it a little bit, but the bread never molded. It just dried out and stayed like that. The patty never turned. You ever see meat when it starts to turn? It turns green. It starts to stink. And it starts to like putrefy. The fries, they just look like day old dried out fries. And so my point, of course, is what have they done to that food that it's preserved that well? It's essentially a mummified meal. What do they do in the normal process of manufacturing the food for not just McDonald's, but all these fast food restaurants? What's part of that normal process? And you're eating it. Maybe not you specifically, but there are people that this is their meal every day. There are a lot of people, they don't cook, they don't know how to cook, they don't care, and this is a normal meal for them. What's it doing to their bodies? What's really in there? And how is it affecting you? How hard is that on your liver? Sven says it could have a driver's license. Yeah, it's old enough. And WCM says insanity. People eat that. Yeah. Urban says it's also the salt content helps preserve the food. That hamburger patty has about a day's quota of salt for the average person. Yeah, that could be also. I'm not sure exactly what's in there or how it's prepared. I don't eat like that anyways. I rarely would eat in a restaurant. You know, we don't, my wife and I, we don't go out and do that. She cooks. So we eat our own, we make our own meals primarily. But you got to wonder about that and how that affects the bodies of the people that eat it routinely, and how it affects the next generation as well, because however your body is altered can have ramifications on if you gestate, if you create a child, if you have a baby. What kind of defects could you pass on from your poor diet, your poor dietary habits? As I think about stuff like that, people poison themselves. I'm a big advocate for eating healthy, for having a clean environment, a clean body, for regular exercise, things like this, trying to be stress-free in your life. And so when I see something like that, where it's like, okay, we're coming up on 3 decades, and the meal doesn't look any different, that's pretty creepy to me. Nature Nerd says Burger King is only good the day of. If you put it in the refrigerator for more than a day, it's pretty bad. Does that mean it's real food? I have no idea. I don't know how Burger King does its meals. And Monkey says China has insane amounts of preservatives, that the food is lab grown and people there get sick from it and realize it isn't the real thing. Yeah, and as you recall, and this has come up before in conversation, that Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC, in China is 3D printing some of their food as an experiment in China. They're 3D printing patties and nuggets, I believe. So is it chicken? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe and maybe not. As we jump around, you know what? We'll jump from McDonald's to Panera Bread. And this is an article that caught my eye about Panera Bread, and this is an NBC News article. It says Panera Bread's charged lemonade blamed for a second death, lawsuit alleges. So their beverages are killing people, according to this. And WCM says poison in all the foods, GMO and everything. And Urban says A&W burgers are excellent quality. So here we go. It says Panera Bread's highly caffeinated charged lemonade is now blamed for a second death, according to a lawsuit filed on Monday. Dennis Brown of Fleming Island, Florida, drank 3 charged lemonades from a local Panera on October 9th and suffered a fatal cardiac arrest on his way home. Brown, 46, had an unspecified chromosomal deficiency disorder, a developmental delay, and mild intellectual disability. He lived independently, frequently stopping at Panera after his shifts at a supermarket. The legal complaint said because he had high blood pressure, he did not consume energy drinks, it added. The lawsuit filed on behalf of Brown's mother, sister, and brother comes less than 2 months after Panera was hit with a separate lawsuit regarding Sarah Katz, an Ivy League student with a heart condition who died in September of 2022 after she drank a charged lemonade. The lawsuit, first reported by NBC News, called the beverage a dangerous energy drink and argued that Panera failed to appropriately warn customers about its ingredients, which include the stimulant guarana extract. Panera has advertised its charged lemonade as plant-based and clean with as much caffeine as our dark roast coffee. At 390 milligrams of caffeine, a large 30 fluid ounce charged lemonade has more caffeine in total than any size of Panera's dark roast coffee. The legal complaint says the large cup contains more than the caffeine content of standard cans of Red Bull and Monster energy drinks combined, plus the equivalent of nearly 30 teaspoons of sugar, the complaint says. The Food and Drug Administration said healthy adults can safely consume 400 milligrams daily of caffeine. Brown had consumed charged lemonades in the days leading up to his death, according to Monday's wrongful death lawsuit, which was filed in Delaware, where Panera is incorporated. Okay. Frivolous lawsuit. It really is. Let me see. Nature Nerd says Panera bread has lots of chemicals in their food if you read the ingredients list. First of all, I mean, you're responsible for what you eat. This is Brown. I'm not trying to be mean to Brown. I know he died at 46. He looks pretty bad. This is not a healthy person. And it says that he had unspecified chromosomal deficiency. So they don't even know what was really wrong with him physically anyways. And developmental delay, he's still, since he is independent, living independently, regardless of a developmental delay, he's still responsible for what he eats and drinks. And the charged lemonade does tell you it's caffeinated. And this other girl, Sarah Katz, had an existing heart condition and still chose to drink a caffeinated drink. So I don't know. Dragon says the main question is if this Panera had the labels and signs clearly stating that it's a highly caffeinated beverage. True. They should have their signage up, and that will be the argument. Odds are Panera will just settle out with both of these people just to shut it up, because that's what a lot of these companies end up doing. But it's really on the consumer what they eat. Monkey says, Jesus, that's about 2 cans of energy drink, assuming the can contains 200 milligrams. And then Nature Nerd says, supposedly McDonald's advertises 100% beef in recent years. Haven't they always? I don't think they ever used a soy alternative, did they? I don't know. But yeah, that's, let me see. One more here from Helter. It says, would this Panera bread case gain traction just like McDonald's hot coffee lawsuit, where the giant corporation spread rumors about the case to make the victim look like an idiot? We have no idea. I've seen the documentary on that hot coffee, because they say, oh, she got millions because she spilled hot coffee. She did not. And she died from complications from her skin graft. She was like 90 something years old. And she was actually severely burned because she held the cup between her thighs, and she squeezed her thighs together, and she couldn't recover from the burns because of her advanced age. What she was really suing for was medical costs and for them to change the lids, which they did change the lids. They did change the lids, and enough money was put aside in the lawsuit to cover the medical expenses, but all of the money that was allocated for that was not used. So there was no multi-million-dollar lawsuit. There is a documentary on that entire thing called Hot Coffee. So if you were really interested, you can look it up for yourselves, guys. And Urban says many energy drinks come up with an 18+ warning at the checkout, but not all brands have that warning. And Nature Nerd says Taco Bell and Subway have been busted in the past for using 50% real meat. Disgusting. Even more so, you might remember like about a year ago, big lawsuit against Subway because their tuna is not tuna. As a matter of fact, according to the lab results at something like 10 or 12 independent labs across the country, it's not even actually fish, and they can't determine what it actually is. The labs could not determine what the material was, but it was not even fish. And there was a lawsuit. I don't know whatever happened with that lawsuit. I don't know how that worked out. But anyway, we'll go ahead and wrap. Hello, Miss Kitty. We'll go ahead and wrap things up. Again, this is Coffee Talk, or at Coffee Talk Live if you're looking for me on YouTube, or Prepper University on YouTube, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, or Fistful of Radio, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or Friday at noon. So thanks to everybody who was able to join us here today. Hope you got something out of the conversation, and we will see you again tomorrow, folks.